What's up, everybody? We are live. Today we have Tyler Austin, one of the experts in our community, that's going to come in here and show you guys why data plays such an important part in your wholesaling business, real estate business, and business in general. And Tyler, you saw a problem. I know you told us about it on the mastermind, but you told us you saw a problem and you solved it with your product. And, we're glad to have you on here, man.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for bringing me into the community. I'm excited to be an expert in it, really focusing on sales and marketing specifically, because that's kind of what it's the lifeblood of all business. And I think there's two sides to it. On the sales side, you have sales coaches, which, I'm not faulting any sales coach out there, but a lot of sales coaches, all they do is they say, hey, make offers, make offers, make offers. And that's the solution to your business, right? If you don't have offers to make, then it's a marketing problem. Spend more, generate more leads. And that's just not the true truth, right? There's a lot of KPIs in between there that are really important, that really dial back into a lot of just sales principles. So when I talk about sales, I'm talking about systems in sales. I'm not talking about talking to the seller, although I'm really good at that. I don't focus on educating any of that or we do a little bit in our community with that. But what I focus on is are we looking at is there leads in our system right now that are labeled as hot that don't have any offers made on them? Because if that's the case, then it's either a lead management problem or salespeople need to get in there and make an offer. Like, what's going on with those leads? So sales and marketing is really about, from my perspective, is about making sure that there's cohesion, that there's checks and balances. And when people think of REISIP, some people think about it that don't really know, but maybe heard it from a friend that it's that really complicated tool where there's a lot of tags you can add, there's a lot of filters, and there's all these systems, and there's all these buttons, and all these other things. And then they go to Podio, where there's way, way, way more customization, and they go pay somebody money to build something out that ultimately they don't use 90% of it. And so we really focus on what are the things you truly need in your business, what matters, and how do you, if we don't have it in product yet, what should you be doing in order to compensate while we build out that want? A good example of that is KPI tracking. Most people, if you're doing a system and you have a full process in place and that you're tracking all your wrong numbers and you're moving your data through a sequential marketing strategy, if you're doing all the right things on your marketing side, your KPIs at the end of the day don't really matter as much as the person who's just spraying and praying and needing to turn over a specific metric, right? Not saying they don't matter. I'm saying that they can be tracked through a Google sheet, right? Like a lot of businesses do. I have buddies that have, $100 million software companies that literally the whole business runs off a Google sheet, right? And then we have people that aren't even making 500,000 a year thinking they need to go spend $1,000 a month for data box or, building out Podio to have all of these crazy things in there, or paying $50,000 for Salesforce. And it's just a bunch of bullshit, right? It's because it makes you feel better doing all those things than actually focusing on the problem within the problems, what I call it. What is the true thing that's going to drive the needle forward in your business right now? And so that's what I focus on. And the reason why I'm that way is just my background's ingrained in that, right? Just to give you a little bit of background on me, I'm 30 years old, if that matters. I don't know. I got a wife and 2 kids. I spent 8 years in the military, ranging from building bombs for a living to a career field called SEER, Survival, Evasion, Resistance, Escape. The later end of that doing cyber warfare stuff. And so when I got out of the military, I started working for the government more. Most people don't know what this is, but you just Google Red Team, or some people have seen the movie, what was that TV series, Mr. Robot. So if you've watched Mr. Robot, that's my real life, except for instead of some of the stuff they're doing where they're going in places and planting Raspberry Pis and stuff, I would be doing that to military bases and planes and base defense systems and stuff. And I know, this will go over maybe most people's heads, but when you're hacking a plane has a normal car has 1 car bus on it, sometimes 2 buses, right? And so for all the communication to happen across your whole car, to know when you press on that brake pedal, it goes to the computer, right? But that brake pedal is there's a code, it's called a bus code, right, that runs from the brake pedal down the line and communicates with the computers to say slow down at this speed, at this rate, and all this other stuff, right? Well, an airplane has hundreds of LRUs depending on the airplane, and every one of them has a different bus that they're on, sometimes 7, 8, 16 different buses. There's a lot of information. And so if you're hooked up to an airplane that's flying at 20,000 feet in the air and has the Hellfire on it or whatever else, most airplanes won't have a Hellfire, but let's say it's Mark 82 JDAM or something, and you're talking and communicating with it, there's a lot of fucking information. If you're going to write code and then send something to that, it has to be accurate, or else quite literally, it's life or death. You could jack something up and brick the aircraft, and now we have a really bad problem because you can't just fix it, very easily. And so The reason why I give that is because I treat my business in the same way when it comes to the data. Like quite literally is life or death. And I've seen that. I've seen users daily, literally daily, users dropping like flies right now because they didn't take for what I've said in the last 24 months to heart. And they, some of them went off and did their own thing, or they didn't prioritize X, Y, or Z, and they're dead, right? I mean, their businesses are dead. And the same thing happened when coronavirus hit. I had influencers reaching out to me saying, hey, like we're scaling back. Like, no, your business is failing. There's a difference. Scaling back is when, something that you do in order to streamline your business. Coming to me because you have to fire people is because you're failing. And so we want to prevent that from happening. And so we have to build businesses in the most streamlined way, in a healthy way, in the right way, in order to where if things start going sideways, we can find the problem within the problem, adjust it, fix it, and then move forward. And if all else fails, at least we can go to bed, lay our head on a pillow at night, and we can be like, hey, I know that I did everything the right way. And so I know that I can feel comfortable spending the money I'm spending for that business to operate because I couldn't do it any better way, literally from the mathematical, equation wise. I know I'm doing everything right. Maybe my answer is that I need to work a little bit harder in this location to get the results I'm looking for. So just to kind of paint a picture on my mindset and the way that I do things, business is very simple at its core. What's hard is your ability to adjust as a person to fit a business, right? Every business has different levels from their first, $1,000 that they make, from the first dollar they make, really, to, the $10,000 mark, $25,000 mark, 30,000 mark. And really it's 10, 25,000, 250,000, or that first six figures, and then that 500,000 mark, the 700,000 mark, 750,000 mark, million, 2 million, 5 million, 10 million, and so on. And so there's these different gaps that you have to level up as an individual in order to like gain the right amount of experience to change the way that you do things. And sometimes failures are what's needed in order to actually realize like, oh shit, I just skip traced the same records. I had a strategy call with somebody like 2 hours ago, right? I opened up their account. Their account looked great. Everything was looking fine. But then I started looking at their list and I was like, okay, you have like a high equity list in here, a low equity list, you have unknown equity and all these different equity lists, right? And then I looked at their account, right? Or look at their records page and I filtered by those different lists. And I come to find out, 5,000 plus records, actually over 50,000 records had at least two of the same lists on it, right? A free and clear and a high equity. And that's a really small thing, right? Well, okay, why does that really matter? Well, it means that if you're paying 3 cents per record, right? And there's even 5,000 records that you bought that are the same exact record, then that means that you just spent the same money twice. That's like $60 or whatever, or $120. But you do that every month for these guys that are buying data every single month. Skip trace it, because then you got to skip trace that. So that's like $60 for the data itself, and data is pretty cheap, but skip trace is like 15 cents. And so 5,000 versus 15 cents, that's like $2,500, or $1,500, and so that adds up. If you just start using SIFT, literally one mistake in a whole year would pay for the subscription of SIFT like annually. And that doesn't account for the fact of everything else that you save on a daily, right? And I'm going to show you guys this stuff in general. I'm just trying to plant seeds on some of the things that you probably aren't doing in your business that if you started doing, and if you maybe figure out what to do with Google Sheets, like you could start saving money. So never rebuying the same data twice. In order to do that, we cover a principle called the 4 W's to data management. Where has it been? Where is it going? When did it happen? And I forget my fourth one. Irrelevant. It's in our RSF 101. I haven't taught that shit in like 2 years. But nevertheless, if you track your data on that, if you know that answer, right, then you're never going to have to worry about losing. You can always filter by it and make sure that you're not re-spending the same money twice. So never buy the same data twice. Never skip trace the same data twice. Okay. There's no point unless you're meaning to. So for example, I want to skip trace to my first location. Most people don't even skip trace to the second location, but I'm going to skip trace to my first location. I'm going to mark it through it, figure out who I didn't reach after a certain amount of attempts. And then that data set, I'm going to move skip trace in the second location for all the people I didn't reach. And then I'm going to take it, I'm going to mark it to it again after that result. So I want to know. And when I skip trace in that first location, I want to tag my phone numbers with that location. And then when I skip trace in the second location, I want to tag the phone numbers from that location. So if I then filter by 2 skip trace locations on phone numbers and I get like the same amount of records, and I just literally, those 2 locations are pulling the same phone numbers, right? And so I just spent that money twice. So you want to make sure that when you're doing skip tracing, you first start off in a smaller data set so that you can make sure that the skip tracing provider isn't just giving the same, it's not the same location on both providers and you're just spending the money twice. So find 2 different locations that are using 2 different sources. And people always tell me like, oh yeah, it doesn't really yield that good of a result if you do it that way. And I call bullshit. I mean, because I've legitimately tested it. And I actually had somebody, 3 weeks ago or something, I had a huge argument on Facebook because somebody shared our affiliate link an affiliate link and was like, oh, RIS is awesome. You should use it. And this person's like, oh, you shouldn't be using that. You should be using our skip tracing. Don't skip trace through them, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? First of all, whoever you are, if you're saying that like they shouldn't skip trace through us, then you're an idiot, because our skip tracing is the only location that if you own multiple properties in your account, it's not going to charge you multiple times. If you take a list of 100 properties and 25 of them are owned by the same person and any other skip tracing provider, it's going to charge you 25 times for all 25 properties, any result, right? It doesn't mail merge the mailing address. We do that automatically. There's one small example. And the other thing is that in business, if you have to knock another business, right, or say, hey, don't take money from another man's wallet, then you're just being ridiculous to begin with. But the whole point is I went right away and I said, okay, well, I'll just skip trace. I'll skip trace my list. I have a list of my mom, my grandma, and everyone's phone numbers, like 25 people. I skip traced in this location, and then I skip traced the same list in my location, again, fresh, and I looked at the two. All I did is I uploaded those 25 records in the SIFT, tagged with the phone numbers, tagged the other phone numbers, and just filtered by, and I can see, hey, you actually got some phone numbers that I didn't, but I also got phone numbers that you didn't. In the scenario where I know this guy rents his house, you got phone numbers for someone who rents the home, right? But that doesn't matter. They can't sell the home, they rent it. I mean, they can maybe get you in contact with the person that owns it, right? And so that's great for credit collectors. So it seems like your data is pretty good if you're trying to collect, debt from somebody. So that's great. But the whole point is that they got results I didn't, and I got results they didn't. And that in itself proves. And one of them, the ones that I got results for, were the ones that I know were a little bit older of numbers, or they've owned the numbers for a longer time. They got ones for the rentals, and then so on. And so it's really situational. And this is why you can't assume these things. You can guess, and you could assume. It kind of makes an ass out of you, like we all know. However, the important thing is that we don't assume, and we move the data through a cycle, 2 different providers, because now if I were to skip trace through us first for the speed and simplicity, go through, call those records, and then I don't reach them, then skip trace to this other guy, which we recommend to at least 2 providers, like I said, then I would have got as many results as I could through phone numbers. And now I can move that data to another strategy like cold calling or direct mail or whatever. And so that's the second thing. Okay. Second most important thing, make sure you do not skip trace the same data twice, but unless you mean to, in order to work through the data and actually have the highest yield. On that note, right now, there is an 8 times higher likelihood to get a correct number on your first dial through than on your second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Okay. And so right now, it's really, really important that you have a strategy in your business to be able to pull in data on a weekly basis. That's new data set. Like, so this is going to be like, oh, I'm going to pull in new high equity every single week. No, because you're going to run out. Your business has a half-life. If you're a business right now that's relying on absentee owners that with high equity, if your county has 100,000 people and 60,000 are vacant absentee high equity, which would be a lot, but if that's the case, then, and you're pulling 10,000 a month, your business has 6 months to live until you're going to have to spend more money. It also has a constant MRR cycle for another software company or a skip tracing provider of $2,500 a month, and so on and so forth, right? And you just don't need to do that. And so, make sure that you have something where you bring in like probates, or you're bringing in foreclosures, or you're bringing in, I'll show you guys an exact flow of how to control this, but bringing in a new data set on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, ideally weekly, daily if so. Like if you're in your market, there's 7 new foreclosures a day, and you pull in those 7 new foreclosures and you call through those 7 foreclosures daily. If they don't answer on that first dial through, you send direct mail. And then tomorrow morning, you're going to get 7 brand new records. You're going to call through those 7. The ones from yesterday, you're going to call through a second time. And then you're going to do that for at least 3 attempts through. And after doing that, you're going to exhaust it. And when you do this, when you call through it, you're going to call it, send a text message, and leave a voicemail if you get a voicemail. So you're actually doing 3 marketing strategies at the same time. So those 7 individuals. So you're doing, over the course of 72 hours, you're doing 27 touches, right? And so if you don't reach them after that point, it's just long-term direct mail and they'll convert over time. We have users doing this. Some companies, they get 13 or 17 new pre-foreclosures daily, and they're doing over 2 million a year off of something so simple. And they literally have 3 people on their team. It doesn't take a lot when you're doing it like that. And the reason why, I'm going to break this down from if you think about this, the guys are doing it where they're pulling pre-foreclosures or tax liens or whatever on a quarterly basis. If you're pulling that stuff on a daily, you have a system to easily bring it in and skip it and process it on a daily. The guy who does it every quarter, they bring in, let's say 2,500. They have to call through it, gather all the correct numbers. Most of them just throw away the non-interested. They're only looking for the people that are ready to sell today. And then they go and they call through it maybe a few more times and then just throw it away and do nothing with it any further until the next quarter. Compared to if you if I call and I, call them today or over the course of this next week, I'm already going to get all the correct numbers. I'm already get the not interested. I'm already get the people that are interested now. And then, so they're already behind the curve. The only way that they would start getting deals from you is if you didn't do your follow-up properly and they call them because you haven't been following up. And then they made the offer because maybe you had never made an offer. And so they're better at sales. And so that's where sales training really comes into play. Make sure you're tracking, conversations, stuff like that. Right. And so what we call that first to market, right? This isn't anything new. It happens all the time. If you on Facebook all of a sudden and you go like a Facebook group, right, that you've never liked before, and somebody is doing Facebook ads specifically targeting people that are liking that page, Facebook is doing this automatically, right? Oh, you liked a page, automatically you're getting added into that person's data set, and now you're going to start seeing ads, right? But how do you do that when you're doing first to market or for the real estate individuals? Well, you need the data set, right? And you see companies like PropStream and other data providers trying to really pull at people that they're being lazy. They say, hey, we now give this to you right away, right? Like as soon as we see that it's a new foreclosure, you're going to see it right away. But then people don't pull that for every once a month or every quarter or whatever, but it's being updated as quickly as it can there. And so, it's a need. It's just people don't really understand how to do it. And so they just err on the side of ignorance. And ultimately, you lose at the end of the day. So you want to have at least a first market strategy in your business, 1 to 3 niches. So like pre-foreclosures, probates, like evictions. Evictions are great for this strategy because they're happening all the time. Anything that has a frequency to it that's consistent. The reason why is because now we can build a business based off predictability and market trends really easily. If I know that I'm getting 50 of those a week of pre-foreclosures, or like for me, I get 150 new probates every single week. I'm getting 150 new probates on a weekly basis. And I know that after I call through on the first dial through on 150 probates, I'm getting in contact with 25% of those individuals, right? And so that would be however many phone numbers. Let's say it's 35, right? That's 35 correct phone numbers. Okay, cool. Do I get any leads from that? If the answer is yes, then okay, well, how many of those correct numbers does it take to get a lead, and how many leads does it take to get a contract? And then divide that by 150, and now I know how many prospects it takes, to get a contract. And so if next week I only get 100 probates, and it took me 150 to get one contract, I already know I'm not going to get a contract this week, most likely, right? So I know I need more probates. And so it allows you to have what's called proactive KPIs rather than reactive KPIs. Reactive KPIs are KPIs where you've already spent money marketing to figure out if you're losing. And that's how you become a loser, right? Because ultimately you're going to, any big company, like think about it like hedge funds, right? Hedge funds know before they even buy a deal, right? If it's a deal, this before you buy a rental, if it's a deal. But before you market, you don't really know until after the campaign's finished if it was good or bad. It's reactive KPIs. And so you want to you have to do some reactive KPIs in order to actually gain the KPI to know the proactive KPI. The problem is that most companies don't actually ever go back, loop around and find that answer, right? Because they don't know how to get it. So that's the third thing, right? The first to market strategy is really important. Go ahead,
Tyler, can I touch on something real quick? Man, I gotta jump here and watch the baby in a minute. But man, I just wanted to say real quick for everybody watching this, if you're like, oh man, like where's it going? He's talking about all this data stuff. It's all over the place. Like it sounds really high level. Guys, watch this, listen, rewatch this. Coming from a sales guy, right? I do some sales training. Yeah. I was a sales guy first and foremost. Guys, there are a number, there's a plethora of people out there who are significantly worse at sales than me. And they're terrible at talking to people. And they're killing it in this business and in, other industries because of what Tyler's talking about right now. Yeah, I can't explain how crucial it is, the stuff that you're talking about. I wish, I had been introduced to you, kind of from the start, because it would have drastically changed, so the trajectory that I went down, thankful for the path I went down. But I mean, I'd say probably one of the main reasons from my experience that I see people fail is because they're spending all this money in wholesaling on data, subscriptions, all this stuff. And exactly what you're talking about. People think it's, oh no, I need to buy a new list of 10,000 records and more data. Like that's my issue, is I need to go spend another $3,000-$4,000 on data and list where it's like, no, you can make a lot of money with that first, if you do it right and learn how to be effective with it. It's crazy. And guys, what he's talking about is profitability. Like at the end of the day, how do you be an extremely profitable company? First and foremost, and the most effective and lean, efficient business as possible. So I just wanted to, I wanted to leave with that. Man, I'm definitely gonna watch the recording for the rest of this. Love everything you're talking about it. But yeah, so Tyler, thank you so much, man.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Appreciate it, Nathan. It's 100% like profitability is a huge key, right? Last year I ended up spending $300,000 on Facebook, and like we really didn't do anything out of it, right? It ate up a lot of our net profits, and so at the at the end of the day, that means that year my company looks like it's not near as good as it should be because of the fact that we had a bunch of expenditures that didn't yield any results, right? And so you want to really try to eliminate that as much as possible. But the big thing is just like plugging holes. Like it doesn't have to be everything right away. If you're doing a bulk marketing strategy right now, which is when you're pulling data, like say you're pulling 10,000 records every month, you're skip tracing $2,500 every single month, and you're burning through that data, and that's per caller usually. Like a lot of like cold calling companies, they recommend you say, hey, 10,000 records per caller every single month, so you can call through them. Out of those, you're going to get about, on a good day on bulk dialing, a good day, 5% correct number ratio. And so that means out of 10,000 records, you're going to get 250 correct numbers. That's insane. And so somewhere around there, between 250 and 500. And so you're telling me that the other 9,500 people, right, they don't need to sell their house? Like, no, it's because you're not marketing in the right way. But let's just say you do that through 5 attempts, and each attempt, your correct number ratio goes down a bit. And so at the end of the day, after 5 dial throughs of that list, which a lot of people don't do, but let's just say you end up gathering a total of 1,500 correct numbers, right? You still have 8,500 people that you haven't reached yet. So they should probably, have direct mail done. Out of those 8,500 people, there's probably at least minimum 500 people where every number that you have for that seller is a wrong number. And so from your skip tracing provider, you got like, let's say 3 phone numbers back. All 3 phone numbers, they picked up the phone, but they said that it was the wrong number. And you have no idea who those are. And those people you need to send direct mail to. You need to send them to the second skip tracing provider, right? So there's little tiny things where if you are an operation that is crushing it, right, and you're spending a lot of money, just doing something very small can drastically change the outlook of your business annually, because now you can capitalize on the opportunity cost that you don't know exists, right? And so this is kind of like really, really important little things. Another big one, and I'm just covering kind of these principles that I want to get out there that anybody can take away and hopefully have an aha moment. Another big one is if you skip trace at a provider and you get back records with no phone numbers. Everyone does, right? And so these records with no phone numbers, what are you doing with those? Are you tracking those? Do you know what records you've skip traced and that didn't come back with phone numbers? What are you doing with them? Do you have a system to easily say, hey, okay, well, those ones, let's just send direct mail real quick, or let's skip trace those in a second provider and try and get phone numbers? Do you have a flow for that? Because if you skip trace 10,000 people and 80% of them you don't get phone, or even 10% you don't get phone numbers back, that's 1,000 records. What if those 1,000 have 500 vacant properties in them, or 250 vacant properties, and 2 of those vacant properties want to sell, but it's because they respond to direct mail pieces and not cold calling? And that's why you can't reach them, because they haven't had a phone in 15 years. Who knows, right? A lot of people make assumptions based off of what they think, right? In all of their experience in marketing in this world, they start this business and they're in business for like 6 months or even a year, or even 2 years. They've done the same strategy forever. And they think that, like, in all their intelligence, that seller just, if they don't answer by the phone, then that's that. That's not called being a marketer. That's called just not called anything really. It's you're being silly, right? Your business you put a half-life on your business. And so you can fix it very easily. And that's what I really aim to do, right? Is help people be able to do this in a more effective way. So that's another big one, is, sending mail to the phone numbers you don't get any results back from. Another big one is, focusing on like portfolio deals, like focusing on the people that own 3 to 5 properties that have a problem going on. So how do we see those people? How do we market to those? How do we do one marketing effort that, small marketing effort that yields a higher result, right? So how do we spend the same amount of time essentially dialing the same amount of phone numbers, but if we get a hold of somebody, our chances on making money is even higher, because now we're getting 2 properties per contract rather than just 1 property per contract. For example, in 2019, we did 1.3 million off of 30,000 in ad spend. We had 43 properties under contract, but only 12 contracts. We are really focusing on just those 3 to 5 property owns, and at least one of those properties were tax delinquent. That was our thing. If at least one of those properties were tax delinquent, then we were hitting them if they owned 3 to 5, and that way we could try to buy the other 2 to save the tax delinquent property, which in most cases was the homestead. Okay, so save your homestead, so sell these other 2 properties to have the money to save the homestead. So little things like that, and there's just so much opportunity for that. It's just That's one of the problems in this business, that there's so much opportunity that people just choose one little spot that seems the simplest to them, which isn't bad, but it can be simple the other way around. And so let me go ahead and divert over, and I'll go ahead and share my screen. And I'm just going to show you guys my flow for multifamily. Right? This is another really good way for you to just to compound your results, right? If you want to make more money, don't fish in a pond, fish in the ocean, right? You want to get bigger fish, don't fish in the 3-foot pond, fish in the 100-foot ocean, right? Just naturally, there's bigger fish in there, right? And so, instead of single family residences, maybe switch over to duplexes and quads, or 16 unit buildings or whatever. And so for me, my real estate company is all about building just a portfolio now. And so I don't market for wholesaling, I market just for multifamily. And so I'm on a mission to get every single correct number to all multifamilies in Okaloosa County, Florida. And so right now, out of the 10 or less units, there's about 462 of those. We have 264 correct numbers and 164 that they just haven't answered any of our marketing, period, after we called through them multiple times, skip trace multiple times. And so those need to be long-term direct mail and then researching family members, right? And there's about 60 or 70 or whatever that just hasn't finished that call sequential cycle yet. We'll show you guys just a flow in general. I'm going to paint the picture of a daily operation and help you guys out, for those who are like, okay, well, I'm still pretty confused. Tyler just talked about a bunch of stuff. There's no visual aid, yada, yada, yada. All right, so here's my SIFT account. And so what you'll notice, I only have 32,000 records in this one. And that's because, again, it's really niche. If I go to my list page here, I only have a multifamily list. Total is 1,570 multifamily in Okaloosa County. 462 of those are under 10 units. Okay, probates, 2,061. That's a combination between here and Richardson, Texas. And then single family residents, same thing, a combination between here and Richardson, Texas. And so I'm working through primarily at, segmenting this, right? Segmenting this and marketing to it in a sequential pattern. Just a quick overview of SIFT in general. We have our SIFT line. So my lead management's in here. We have, we track our, any acquisitions, dispo stuff, just different boards. I'm the bottleneck in this business, by the way. I make offers when I see a deal that I'd really like, and that's pretty much it. Your records page is really where all of your marketing management happens, right? This is where we're filtering by records. We can see that we have a certain, statuses in here of what they are. Like I skip traced this 120 days ago. The status is prospecting, which means, hey, this person didn't answer and it's a dead number. And that happened for a certain amount of times, right? And so what I want to do is I want to create a flow for my business. And so just sit down and ask yourself for a second, what is my flow? Okay, I get data, and then most people skip trace right away. And that's the first fault. You don't want to skip trace right away. You want to upload to something like REISIF, something that will normalize that data, because look at how many incomplete records I have. I have 4,486 incomplete records. Some of it's because it's missing a mailing address. Some of it's because the last name is just a C instead of the full name. Some of it's just not even a full name. Some of it's just entities. And so you don't want to skip trace this information, because if you do, you'll get back, maybe even if you get back, 75% of the phone numbers, only like very few of them are going to be accurate, because there's no way, I don't care who tells you they can skip trace an LLC, it is not possible. Okay. I was a red team operator. Part of my job was to find people for the government. Like it is not possible to do that through a data set. The only way that you can do that, unless there's like a stir shaken or something like that database that you tap into. Okay. So fun little note there, just a little deep prospecting idea there. Most companies don't stir shaken. Like an LLC like this isn't going to stir shaken their phone numbers. There's no reason. They're not marketing, right? So very, very few. However, if I research that LLC in the state and then look at the owner of the LLC and then search the owner's name and then find the owner's mailing address and then skip trace that, now we're getting somewhere. That's a lot of work though, right? Lowest hanging fruit, right? Maybe I only focus on that for the people that own, like this case, they own 4 or 5 properties, right? Cool. It's probably worth it then to go ahead and figure out who this owner is of Strickland House LLC, and then offer an out-of-state investor. Maybe I can buy all 3 of these. This one's on 2 or more lists. One is single family residence, multifamily. That doesn't make any sense. However, that's what's popping up as, right? So maybe I spend the extra time to do that. Maybe if I end up looking at the record, on Google, which actually I can just click this lightning bolt and go to Google Maps. Hopefully it finds it okay. Hey, it's this one. This was for sale by owner, actually, like literally not long ago. This corner right here. Look at that. It's got a tarp on it and everything. So obviously maybe that's an option. Maybe that's something that could be something. Anyway, I digress. So I come over here, right? And I intake new data. I intake that new data, and right away I want to know, like, do I need to skip trace those records or not? And so I create a folder here. If I create a new folder and I call it skip trace flow, and I just create some filters. So here's my multifamily 10 or less. So I'm filtered by my multifamily list. My tags, I'm just removing different types of properties that are multifamily. I don't have any call attempts on them. There are no phone numbers. The owner type is a person, and the skip tracing is no. And I click apply. As of right now, there's nothing here. But if I uploaded records, multifamily properties in any location in the United States right now, they would pop up here. If they didn't have phone numbers. If for whatever reason one of those properties were already owned by one of the owners that have that same mailing address, then it would automatically just merge with that person. I wouldn't have to skip trace and spend money on it. So after I skip trace it, my next step is I need to ask myself, okay, well, was there any that came back without phone numbers? So if I skip trace it and it came back without phone numbers, then it's going to show up here because I'm filtering by records that were skip traced, yes, numbers, no. And so very easily, I just know that right away. I upload the list. If they don't have any phone numbers, then I'm going to either have two options: send direct mail right away, which is what I do right now, or export and skip trace in a second location and try and gather those phone numbers so I can cold call. All right. So that's the first thing. No matter what business you are, if you're doing bulk cold calling, bulk SMS, any of those things, that is the first and foremost thing. That's the standardized process you should be doing in your business. Upload data on a frequency, doesn't need skip trace the ones that need it, and then the ones that don't get phone numbers back, send direct mail or skip trace in second location. After that happens, now I have different data sets that I need to choose what kind of campaigns I want to do. If I'm doing bulk cold calling, then like we are for Richardson, Texas, 75080 is the zip code, then I'm going to create some filters to track the marketing from attempt 1 through 5. And then I'm going to have what's called an RTM folder, or ready to market. So this is the data that came back. It doesn't have any status on it, because if it had a status, that means that we reached the person. And I'm going to talk a little bit about dispositions and marketing in a second, okay? I'm going to talk about that. So that's really important to understand. The difference between a property disposition and a phone disposition is really, really huge. You got to track both. Okay. But right now, I want to see the data that we've never marketed to. And right now, we don't have any. It's all sent for marketing, but it doesn't have a status. It's not assigned to anybody inside of REI SIF to focus on niche marketing on. It doesn't have any call attempts. It has phone numbers. Okay. Result is 0. Okay, but I could come in here and I could look and I could find, okay, well, where is that data at right now? Where's, out of my bulk cold calling, what's been attempted 3 times? Okay, and so I could click apply. And as of right now, we have 4,086 records that we have called that have not picked up the phone because they don't have any statuses. But I could click on one of these and I might have a wrong number on one of them, right? So if I want to see that, how many of these that are on their 3rd attempt just have wrong numbers, I could just do phone status and I could filter by the phone status wrong number and click apply. And as of right now, 288 of these have a wrong number. So that's a wrong number. And on call tools, which is what we use for cold calling, like these phone numbers haven't answered. Because if they did answer, then they would disposition it and it would come back. And if it was a wrong number, it would just update wrong number. If it was a, hey, don't ever call me again. If it was the correct person or wrong person, there's different DNC, options. But if they say, hey, yeah, I'm interested in selling, then it would update as a new lead and it would put it as a correct number. And you see, so what happens is as you're calling, like these people with wrong numbers, I select them, I'll send them directly from here to call tools, but I won't send anything with a status. But if I wanted to send all my wrong numbers and try to get sued, then I can select just wrong number status and send only wrong numbers from these records. But ideally, I just send no status, right? And now I'm going to send back these records again for another campaign with phone numbers that haven't been answered yet. And so that's going to continue to trickle down until ultimately I'm sending less and less phone numbers to call tools, and I'm really squeezing out that bulk marketing. And if after 5 attempts, if nobody answers, let's see if we have any that are at 5 attempts right now on this campaign. Right now we don't. So after 5 attempts, if there's still people, if there's 5 records in here, I send them to call tools and they've already dialed through that campaign, then these can get sent to an SMS campaign to be bulk SMS for 5 times. So I can try to get phone correct numbers through that way. This business is about gathering correct numbers. That's all it is. Don't be confused. You're not trying to find people that are ready to sell today. As much as they try to tell you that in a lot of places, that is not what you're doing. You're trying to gather correct numbers. You're trying to gather as many not interested as possible. And this is a really big thing. I seriously can't stress this as much as possible. You want as many not interested as possible. Right now I have 897, and that makes me so happy. Why? Because I can call through these 897 every single month and see, are they ready to sell yet? Are they ready to sell yet? You see, most of y'all's marketing budgets are so expensive because you have to spend money on marketing every single month. But if you focus on a specific niche, right? Like the real estate agents that focus on a specific zip code and they live their whole lives off of that zip code because they know, hey, there's 10% of the properties selling that zip code every single month. Okay. You have 10% turnover and there's 1,000 properties. All right. That's 100 properties a month in that zip code that get sold. I only need 5 of them a month. And so they just work really hard to become known in that community and they never move into another community. right? You can do the same thing in wholesaling and same thing in investing is you can literally market to a specific zip code, get every correct number. And as long as you're smart and you know how to do multiple different closing strategies, you could literally just gather every correct number in that specific zip code. And you could just follow up forever moving forward. You can send direct mail, you can just call them. You can see what's going on. Not interested? We do a 90-day follow-up. So every 90 days you follow up, see what's going on. We have a lot of users right now at the end of the year, after a whole year of marketing to, doing bulk cold calling, have thousands and thousands of not interested. We have a user with 25,000 correct numbers in his market. He called back through in one campaign in December of 25,000 records and put out 3 deals, right? Just by doing a non-interested, just calling back through non-interested. Really, really simple thing to do that nobody does that can make a drastic difference on your bottom line. Otherwise, what you do is you end up re-pulling this record later and with all the phone numbers because you re-skip trace it again. And then you have to re-hope that the person picks up the phone to tell you it's the right number, all because a year ago you didn't save it when you already had it. It's silly. It's dumb. It doesn't make any sense. And so there's a smarter way to go about it. Okay. And so after I skip trace, if I get phone numbers back, what's going to happen is automatically going to end up whatever flow you want ready to market. And then you just move it through the flow. And I have every first Thursday of the month, I have the opportunity to come on here and just show you guys different things. So I can break down, whatever is needed, that you guys want. So let's talk about multifamily though. So my multifamily property status is like, hey, there's not new multifamilies coming out every single month, right? Like that's not happening every single day, but I'm putting it through a cycle where, hey, I bring them in, I market through them and I get as many correct numbers as I can. If I just do my multifamily list right now, so let me just load like this one and then I'll remove my status. I'll just remove this, remove that. I'll say numbers, yes. And then I'll do phone status. That's correct. Let's see how many correct numbers I have. Oop, I need one more tag. I want to filter by 10 or less units. Multifamily 10 units or less, right? Click apply. So right now I have 121 correct numbers to multifamily properties, right? And you can see how many are not interested right now. That's fine. I don't care if you're interested today. I have your correct number now. Okay. And I'm going to follow up with you and I'm going to try to make an offer again on your property in the future. Okay. And I'm going to do that for every one of these. I'm going to track how many of these have an offer made. So I can come in here and I can go to offer count, one or more. And there's probably only like one of those. Yeah. Right. So that means that out of those 121 that aren't interested, I can call through them. I say, hey, well, can I at least give you an offer? Maybe it'll make sense. And if they say, sure. And so I want to be able to make an offer to as many of those as I can, right? But I also don't want to waste my time either, okay? And speaking of that, like you do track offers here. So I'm not going to get in this too much for the sake of time, but we can talk about how to track offers properly and what the difference between an accepted offer is versus an under contract offer. So if like I give an offer to somebody and they're like, oh yeah, 150,000 for my property, I'll accept that. And so you do, let's say it's 80 just for the sake of this, right? And so you submit it. They haven't signed a contract yet. Until they sign the contract, it's not under contract. In REI SIF, let me just go to like my record that I'm always doing this on so that doesn't mess up my system. So if I say it's 80,000 here and then they go under contract at that, now it converts from an offer to a deal. And so now in REI SIF, I can update that deal and say, hey, it's going to be a wholesale and it's for 15,000. We're going to project it. We assigned it for 15,000, but we had to do a cleaning on it. And that was $500. I'm just putting whatever was already in here and I save it. And so now if I update the deal, I never clicked add on this. There we go. Save it. I have a projected cost of $500, assignment fee 15,000, but hey, it closed, save. And so, okay, well, what's the difference between close and deal finalized? Well, when a deal closes, there's still things that need to be done. Okay. And you would want tasks to get automatically added to a record to track this, right? So after something closes, you want to make sure that you update your QuickBooks account, get the HUD and upload it to a location where it's easily accessible for at the end of the year when you do your taxes, because everyone scrambles for that kind of stuff, right? And you can put automations in place to make sure those tasks get added. And then also a deal review. So you can look at the activity log then and figure out, okay, well, when did we get this record? When did the correct number come? What did we do to actually close this deal? Deal reviews are so important. Listen to the voicemails of the acquisitions that talk. Listen to the voicemails of, and the conversations of the lead managers. We're integrated with smartphone and air calls, so you can listen to the voicemails, through the activity log and just track what's going on. And then once that's done, you switch to the deal finalized, and then you get your deal profit, right? And there's so much more being happened there. I'm just going to update this as deal fell through, and then said was a test, and then save it. Okay, and so it's all about making sure you have systems in place. And so I'm going to test something really quick, because I didn't know that we released this to beta. I don't even know if it works, but we have a phone book feature we just launched. And so I'll show you kind of like on the owner's page here. If I filter by persons, you can see like some of these people own like 16 properties. Maybe this person, okay, yeah, it's not on this page yet. Maybe this person doesn't want to sell, but maybe they become an owner, someone that's a lender or a buyer. We got a button here that'll toggle, and it'll become a contact in the phone book. And so we're working on releasing that. It looks like they just have it pushed to beta real quick. So anyway, that's another way though that you can do. You can market to just people that have multiple properties. Filter by persons that own a certain amount of properties. Maybe, like I said, hey, these people own, let's see, property count. They own, 3 or more, let's say 3 to 7 properties. Let's just say that there's a phone status. They don't include any correct number, right? And so I know I don't have a correct number for them. And so for me, that's 170 properties. So let me call through these real quick and see if I can't get a portfolio deal. So I just click next record, and most of these we've already called through. Next record, and this person doesn't have phone number, so maybe I skip trace them really quick, and so on. It's just so much. I'm not going to be able to I'm not covering everything in this one. I'm really just here to plant seeds. I'm not here to sell anybody anything specifically. I'm here to plant seeds, and hopefully you guys start doing little things in your business to start actually yielding the results that you should, having the confidence in your business that you should have. And then you create systems and flows, right? Like new lead, for example. Let's say you have a new lead. I create a custom status called new lead. I have a sequence in place. I don't use my sequences a ton, but I have a sequence in place to where when a new lead comes in, it goes to my lead management board and it adds the task to call new lead. And so on my SIF line board, new leads, there's 19 new leads I need to call. I add a photo to mine so I can see it, and I call them back. And then really it's just about making sure you're doing your tasks. And right now, if I show mine, it's pitiful. I have a ton of overdue tasks on all these leads that I need to handle. And it's mainly because like I work them at my pace and what I want. If you're a legitimate, like you're doing marketing and you rely on them and everything else. Oh, that's kind of cool little area. These all duplexes. Looks like more like a townhouse. Huh. Anyway, I look at the message board and I can see my message board in here. And what's really cool is like I can come in here and I can just look. I see, okay, when did I upload this data? So I uploaded the list, this record originally on December 6th. And when did we get a correct number? The first initial call happened on December 20th. I skip traced it on the 6th. First call happened on 20th. And then we got a correct number on the 20th. And I could listen to the voicemails. Like if I did my job and I can see where the problem happened here, this is where what do you do in a deal review? On the 20th, I got a task and it's still it's not overdue right now. Actually, it's due on the 9th to follow up. And I'm sure it says that in the message board why. But if I was overdue already, which most likely I will become, just knowing me, then I would want to get on my own ass, right? Or get on my lead manager's ass and figure out what's going on. There's so much more. There's lead management folders to make sure every single, Friday evening, your lead manager is filtering. For example, if I had a lead manager that was, working this business is only 90 days old, right? This Happy Acquisitions. But if I had one and I had a property status of new lead, right? At the end on every Friday, you should filter by anything that's a new lead, right, that has, let's say, task status of overdue. And so in my case, that's going to show up with 19 properties. Like, oh shit, the lead manager should be like, yo, red flag, there's a bunch of new leads. We can't go home until we call all these new leads and assign them a follow-up task and everything else and so on. And so, there's little QC things. So you want to make a folder for your lead management team to make sure that they can go through those. And you create a recurring task under your recurring tasks to say, hey, check lead management Friday overview tasks, right? Whatever you want to do. And that way you can make sure that every Friday you're going through and checking what leads don't have tasks at all across the whole system. I was on a strategy call with one of our users 3 days ago. They had 3,000 leads in their system, like leads, and 222 of them had 0 tasks on them. So they're not being followed up with at all. They have no follow-up sequence. And out of those, 20 of them were labeled as hot leads. Okay, well, are they hot or are they not? Because if they're hot, then they should have a task. If they're not hot, then they should not be labeled as hot, right? And so on. And so this is why businesses fail. And they go to these systems that have built-in KPI tracking, and they think that that's going to solve their problem. No, it's not. Because what solves your problem is persistence and habits. You can't take and say, oh, hey, you can't, like, I can buy a bike all day and it can sit there all fucking day. I can buy a trainer and I can get Zwift to go ride the bike, virtually in my office. But that bike even if it had the ability to rotate on its own, it's not going to affect me. It's like not going to benefit me at all, right? So I can get like a KPI dashboard and I can have all these automations doing all this other shit. But if I don't get on it on every Friday or however, like I saw on it every day, I saw on it in the evening for 20 minutes every single day, right? And if I don't hop in the sauna, I'm not going to sweat, right? I could turn it on all day, but if I don't get in it, that's a different story, right? And so the point is that don't go seeking out things that you think that you need because you have bad habits. We do have KPIs that we are launching in here. I'm not going to talk much about it, but just know if you've seen already everything that we do have, it's pretty freaking pretty awesome. Tracking all the phone numbers, tracking all the capability. When you can start associating records with campaigns, with the integrations, with everything that we have, it's gonna be super awesome. But I'm gonna leave it at that for now. And all I want you guys to walk away with this as a summary, 5 things, right? Never buy the same data twice. Never skip trace the same data twice until you've marketed through that data a certain amount of times, and then skip trace in a second provider that does not get their phone numbers from the same location as the first. Make sure that you send mail to the records that you don't get skip trace results from. Okay, we're plugging holes here, right? This is how we save money every single month and how we gain deals from opportunity costs that we're currently not like seizing the opportunity on. Make sure that you're bringing in data on a daily or weekly basis and doing what's called niche sequential marketing, call, text, voicemail, work through those records, have a flow for that. Our onboarding team here at REISafe will help you out if you guys do decide to become users and do that. And lastly, make sure that you have a way for your team to wake up every day and say, hey, what's my task due today? What are my overdue tasks? And what do I do if I don't have anything that's any of those two? Okay. And as long as at the end of every day, all tasks are completed and you're feeding in new data to your business and all your tasks are being completed, your business will thrive. And as long as those actions are tailored directly towards income producing tasks, meaning collecting correct numbers, getting as many correct numbers as you can, your business will continue to grow. The only thing that will make it not is your ability to be a leader and your ability to manage money, both personally in your personal lives as well as in the business. So I'm going to leave you on that. If anything, maybe we add a note to just skip to the very end of this and just listen to those 5 things or 6 things. And I think that I know your business will improve. Okay. Lastly, I didn't mention this. I think I have like 560 some doors. So this process does work. I've used it all the time in my own life, and thousands of our users do as well. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Reach out to me in Discord. And then as well, I'll see you guys at the first of Thursday of next month. Thank you so much, Jackie. And I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.